Israel says it has struck Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon after the group fired more than 100, quote, aerial threats into Israeli territory. Some of them landed near the port city of Haifa. Israel says that 3 people were injured in the attacks, but no casualties have been reported. The militant group said the wider and deeper attack was in response to a wave of Israeli airstrikes on southern Lebanon. Cross-border exchanges have ramped up again this week after an Israeli strike on a Beirut apartment building killed top Hezbollah commanders on Friday. Lebanese authorities say at least 45 people were killed in that attack, including children. For the latest, let's cross over to DW's Tanya Kramer in Jerusalem. Tanya, the latest strikes have prompted Israel to now further limit gatherings in northern Israel. Tell us more.
Yeah, because we are seeing that these strikes by Hezbollah are reaching deeper inside northern Israel. So that means the Home Front Command has changed their guidelines for residents there, saying cancelling the schools early this morning and also advising people to be close to bomb shelters, or most of the people would be in bomb shelters now because alarms have been going off constantly in the early morning hours and also overnight now. The military has said that over 100 aerial threats were launched, rockets and drones were launched towards civilian areas in the north over the past hours. Many of them were intercepted, some were also falling down, but there are reports of damages and also some light injuries mainly by shrapnel that's falling down, but also rescue services here have said they're treating people for anxiety and those running falling over when they're going to shelters. Now there is of course concern that this will be further expanding. Also of course people here in the center of the country are looking very closely at what is going on there in the north. Hezbollah has said this is the initial phase of their retaliation for the attacks last week in Lebanon, and the Israeli army also said they are striking southern Lebanon again, in the past hours, but that they also will intensifying their strikes against Hezbollah.
Right. That's not the only thing happening. Overnight, Israeli troops raided the offices of Qatari broadcaster Al Jazeera in Ramallah in the occupied West Bank and ordered it to shut down for 45 days. Now, Al Jazeera aired footage of the raid live on its Arabic language channel. That's some of what you're seeing right now. Israel's government announced last week that it was revoking press credentials for Al Jazeera journalists. The channel was banned from operating within Israel 4 months ago, but has continued working from Gaza and the West Bank. Tanya, what is behind this move from Israel?
Well, what's behind it is this so-called Al Jazeera law that was passed back in April. And this allows the communication minister, with the consent of the Israeli prime minister, to basically ban the broadcast of foreign networks that are deemed to be a threat to national security. And what Israeli officials here have said that they're banning Al Jazeera because they are a mouthpiece for militant groups, mainly Hamas and those groups in Gaza. So that was applied already back in April to the bureau in Jerusalem with the closure of this bureau, and that pertains to the English and the Arabic service of Al Jazeera. And as you said, their credentials also were revoked, and now we've been seeing this also in Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. Now, press freedom groups have sharply criticized this law because it's very broadly worded, and it could end also in stopping other foreign networks from broadcasting here in Israel.
Right. DW correspondent Tanya Kramer in Jerusalem. Thank you. Now, for more analysis on the situation in Israel, I'm joined by DW Middle East analyst Shani Rosanes. Hello, Shani.
Hi.
An intensity of attacks from both sides. What's the strategy here?
Well, Israel is trying to decouple Hezbollah's attempt to connect itself to Gaza. Basically, the bombing and the exchange of fire between Israel and Hezbollah started soon after October 7th. And it was sort of a war of attrition for a long time, almost a year now, that both sides were kind of playing, it seems, to very clear rules of conduct where, what is the range, what are the kind of targets that are being hit. And now Israel tries to break that equation, try to say we're not playing, with the same set of rules anymore. We want to break the situation. We want to move out of it. And also Israel slightly shifts into the north because the southern front with Gaza doesn't seem to be heading anywhere into any conclusion or any deal, which was seen for a long time as the key that will solve all of the problems, for Israel in the south and in the north with Hezbollah. This seems to be nothing, coming anytime soon. So the Israelis have shifted, Netanyahu decided to shift his focus into the north.
Right. I mean, Hezbollah launching dozens of rockets into Israel. Is this a completely different threat compared to Hamas?
Definitely. I mean, Hezbollah, as I said, there was this quiet war of attrition. Both sides wanted to keep it sort of like on this very low temperature. But then it is clear that Hezbollah is a far more sophisticated, well-armed enemy when it comes to Israel, the way Israel sees it as a threat. First of all, because Iran is backing Hezbollah, and this axis between them too, and the very strong ties between them is one thing that very much bothers Israel. But then the second fact is that Hezbollah is just very well equipped. We're talking about 150,000 probably war missiles, that are with high precision. Some of them can reach, the heart of Israel, Tel Aviv, the most populated part of the country. So of course it's a far more, when Israel is looking at its strategy when it comes to Hezbollah, it's far more cautious because there's far more to lose or to gain in this. But in this specific moment, after what we've been seeing in the last week as the attacks on the pagers and all of that happening in Lebanon, Israel feels that Hezbollah is in its weakest point. It's been for many, many years, and it's sort of a strategic moment where they can use the advantage that they have and weaken it even further, sort of solving their problems for the next year of the threat that, Hezbollah might pose.
Right. I mean, based on all that's going on, the intensity from all sides, is there even still room for ceasefire negotiations?
Well, the Americans were very much hoping and working for that. They have their own mediator that is dedicated just to that, a guy named Amos Hochstein. He's been going back and forth between Lebanon and Israel, basically saying what's going to happen is there's going to be an escalation, there's going to be lots of lives lost, there's going to be an immense damage for infrastructure, and then there'll be some sort of an agreement reached. Let's skip the terrible part and the tragic part and go to the deal. And it seems like, it doesn't seem to be that any of the sides are there. And this is what exactly Israel is hoping, to push Hezbollah into the place where they realize we have too much to lose in a military confrontation. Let's try to find another way to basically what Israel wants is Hezbollah to cease fire, to be able to bring back the Israelis who had to flee and evict their houses in north of Israel, let them come back to their houses.
Right. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Of course.
Shana Rosanes, CW Middle East analyst. Thank you very much.
Well, meanwhile, tens of thousands of people are rallying across Israel, demanding the government of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reach a hostage deal in Gaza. The families of hostages held by Hamas fear that their plight risks being overshadowed as Israel turns its attention from Gaza to the fight with Hezbollah in Lebanon. More than 100 hostages are still believed to be held captive in Gaza. Well, standing by in Tel Aviv at the main rally is DW correspondent Emily Gordine. Emily, we know that tonight's protests come amid the escalation between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. So how do Israelis feel about a potential for an all-out war with Lebanon?
Well, they're extremely concerned. We've been speaking to them here tonight, and some of them are extremely angry at the government for not finding a diplomatic solution to this conflict. Others are very worried about the hostages that still remain in Gaza. They're worried that this shift in focus now to the northern border means that the hostages will be forgotten. Others were very defiant, and they said, we don't want this war. And they blamed Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, for not finding a deal with Hamas out of political reasons to maintain his political survival. But above all, really, people are worried about their safety and about what will happen next.
Well, as you mentioned, Emily, there are the hostage protests alongside the thousands of people who are demonstrating against the Israeli government. So what exactly do they want to see from Benjamin Netanyahu, from his government?
They want to see a deal that will bring back the hostages from Gaza. They've been protesting every Saturday now for almost a year for the same reason. They want the hostages back. They want to see a diplomatic solution out of this conflict. And they're very angry, but they're also very distrustful of the government. Like I just mentioned, many people don't believe that Benjamin Netanyahu has an interest in getting the hostages back. There's not been much progress over the last year. And to add on to that, I mean, in his government, he has ministers who have openly said that they are not in favor of a deal, and they're putting a lot of pressure on him. And that's why people come out here again and again to make sure that their voices are heard too, and that this will ultimately end in getting the hostages back.
That was DW's Emily Gordine reporting from Tel Aviv. Emily, many thanks indeed.